Welcome to the Gruber Morning Show. Pay no attention to that intro and that outro, which was for the wrong show. This is the EV show that we do every week, folks, and I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Good morning. We will be here today.
Yes. So the image behind us there, it's a sad-looking Cybertruck. The prompt was, please anthropomorphize a Cybertruck looking pretty sad with some body panels falling off and people with placards. And boy, it didn't disappoint. It did a pretty good job, I think. And it also ignited some of our audience before we even went live here. YouTube, Obertowski, welcome. We were talking about what is the biggest flop so far in the auto world, and he said, no, the biggest flop was Renault Avantime.
You know, I did a little bit of looking since we had a couple minutes, and the nickname of the Avantime from Renault was supposed to mean ahead of time. And the nickname that the car got was the not on time. It took 4 years to get to market. It was 2 years late, and it only sold about 8,400 units. So it definitely was one of the biggest flops in the world kind of ever.
In the world of not on time, you might think that the second generation Tesla Roadster might be in that category too.
Yeah, if the second generation Roadster ends up selling 2,500 units like the first generation one did, then you're going to have to count that one as well.
So this is an article from Forbes, and here's the headline. Forbes does not appear to be Tesla friendly, I've noticed, but let me read you some of this. Huge swing and a miss, says the headline. Cybertrucks reportedly stand as auto industry's biggest flop ever. And then it goes on, it says, Elon Musk's widely derided Tesla Cybertruck now stands alone as the biggest flop in the automotive history, according to experts. They don't quite define the experts yet.
Of course.
Right? Then they say sales of the recall-plagued, sharp-cornered vehicle have fallen laughably below the 250,000 in annual sales that Musk predicted, and the truck has become the focal point for global protests over his alliance with President Donald Trump and his sweeping cuts to the U.S. government, reported Forbes. So another leading expert they quote is, and this is Eric Noble, president of Consultancy Car Lab and a professor at the Arts Center College of Design in Pasadena. Sounds like a liberal professor to me.
Yeah,
right?
It kind of does.
All right. He says it's right up there with the Edsel. It's a huge swing and a huge miss. Well, so what's the backstory on the Edsel?
Well, if you were Ford, in its kind of arrogance almost, decided that they wanted to have a car named for one of the family, and there was an Edsel Ford, and Ford had built the Edsel hoping it to be an everyman's car. Their plan was to make and sell 200,000 Edsels a year by the late 1950s, early 1960s. The reality did not match with their expectations. People derided the Edsel as one of the ugliest cars of all time.
It was.
It was, too. It sold 63,000 units over the course of 2 years and then was dumped by Ford. They couldn't afford to keep a production line running for such a small number.
Yeah, it was first released in 1958, by the way. And they correlate this now to Tesla with the Cybertruck. They say Tesla sold only 40,000 Cybertrucks in 2024, its first full year on the market, and sales trended even lower in January and February of the year.
You know, I looked up a little bit more on that sales trend. Tesla grouped so far year to date, it has Model Y, it has Model 3, and then it has other models. So that's the S, that's the X, that's the Cybertruck, and that's the Semi. It doesn't break out numbers for all four of those models, but it does say that there's been 13,000 approximately sold in January and February combined.
Right.
Best guess from analysts is that the Cybertruck might have sold as many as 9,000 in the first 2 months. Much more realistic, they're saying, is that it would have sold more along the lines of somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 units in the first 2 months.
They go on in this article, by the way, they say deliveries of all Tesla vehicles have tumbled 13% from the first quarter of this year to 337 units, well below the consensus expectation of 408,000. And while the company did not break out Cybertruck sales from its reporting sales, clearly, sales are clearly nowhere what Musk had promised. Now, let's rephrase this a bit, though. Promise is a strong word. I think predicted is a better word. And there's a distinct difference. One is a commitment, and the other one's a guess.
Yes.
So this sounds like more of a guess on, Elon's part. And let's not remember that they had this down payment program, if you remember. For $100, you could reserve your Cybertruck, and they hailed it as something that's going to be extremely popular, so get your pre-order in. And it was refundable.
Yes.
And I know even some guys here put, it's $100. I'll throw it at it and see what it looks like when it comes out, and, whether I'm going to be interested in buying. A lot of those canceled.
And, and if you remember the hype, it was, we're going to get you a truck with all of a truck's capabilities. It's going to be somewhere between $39,900, so $40,000 and $70,000. The reality is they got a truck that doesn't have all of a truck's capabilities because the entire segment has issues with things like towing.
Mm-hmm.
They just haven't been solved yet. And the price range is from $61,000 to $100,000, not 30 to 70.
Right. And at the time, before it was released, Elon bragged in November of 2023, demand is off the charts. And just before the vehicle started shipping to customers, he says we have over 1 million people who have reserved the car.
Yeah.
Well, that, of course, fell substantially short of the 336,000 that got delivered. We've got a bunch of people chiming in here. Instagram, GD04 says, hey, from Ireland. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Good afternoon. On Instagram, Mode Amin says hi.
Welcome. And YouTube, Bill Wood. Don't forget the Tucker. Yeah, remember that? There were some automotive lackluster disasters in its history.
Yes, that is true. PYGKLB on YouTube has joined us again. Glad to have you back. He says, good morning from rainy Western Oregon. Send some of that rain down here to Arizona. We'd sure like to have some.
We could use it. So the capacity that Tesla has at the Austin Gigafactory to produce Cybertrucks was 250,000 units per year. And at the time that they built this facility for that kind of demand, they asked him, well, what's your market research? And he said, there's zero market research whatsoever. There was a high degree of confidence at the time that this truck was going to revolutionize pickup trucks.
Right.
There were also issues about it being non-compliant with certain safety standards in various overseas markets, which they never fully resolved, and that put off many would-be buyers overseas.
It did, and I have to admit, one of my favorite kind of silly ditty YouTube videos was somebody taking and putting wheels on a Lego brick, and then putting two of the triangle corner bricks on either side and saying, look, I made a Cybertruck.
Right. So Tesla reportedly spent an estimated $900 million developing the Cybertruck. I mean, folks, we're talking right about $1 billion.
Yeah.
And which sells for more than twice what Elon originally predicted. So it's currently sitting, they are sitting on $200 million of unsold inventory with the Cybertruck. So maybe we'll see some sales.
Well, they are starting to do some sales. They've got the 1.99% financing for well-qualified buyers. That's a current promotion that they have. And, of course, they're still promoting the $7,500 EV credit to go with that. The other really notable thing from a manufacturing and production standpoint is that the Cybertruck is by itself. The production line for Cybertrucks is unique. It is not compatible with the other Tesla vehicles. Mm-hmm. So that means if they don't need to produce things, it's wasted space.
Mm-hmm. Well, Highlander's joining us. Welcome back. He says, since January 30th, two weekends ago when I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, I've been at 4 Tesla showrooms. One of the display people admitted they're not selling. I could already see that the trucks are stacked up like cordwood in the back of the lot. This is not speculation. This is reality. People are not buying them, Sorry for my absence, gang. It's okay, Highlander. You took a break, and we're good with it.
Yeah. Bill Wood on YouTube, the Tucker, there were 48 made. And now, of course, the Tucker's worth $1 million.
Law of supply and demand, yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Highlander also chimes in, P.S. I drove a brand new Model X with the absolute latest version of full self-driving, and it drove me to Home Depot all by itself. I'm a believer, but only in the seats.
And
yeah.
Real quick on Highlander's point, and just on general them kind of building up, for the economies of scale, for the prices of these trucks to come down, don't they need more demand? Isn't that kind of like a catch-22? How are they going to get those prices to go down, aside from offering sales, like you said?
By shifting profits around. You're right. It's without scale,
yeah,
the pricing can't come down. That's what we're noticing with some of these other new EV manufacturers, like Lucid. What is it, a couple $100,000 loss per vehicle? And it costs less than that, actually. You know?
Yeah. You know, it's
the sale price.
This is why it costs billions and billions of dollars to start up a good automotive factory, because the reality is, even at current automotive prices, the name of the game is loss leader.
You know, that's why I also question these companies that jump into the niche vehicles and first, you know. We're going to talk about Corvette here in a moment. Yeah, it's a great niche vehicle, but folks, GM really needs to get their EV act together, not an EV niche vehicle.
Yes, exactly.
But wait till you see some pictures of this Corvette. You're going to like it, I think.
Yeah.
So we promised you that we would report on the fire in Rome, Italy, at the Tesla dealership, and there's not much new information except for this. There were definitely 17 cars that were destroyed after the fire broke out on the outskirts of Rome. No injuries, again, had been reported. The Italian police are still investigating all avenues to look into how the fire started, and they have still not ruled out any kind of arson. But it turns out that this isn't an isolated case in the country of Italy. The fire comes after a string of reports across Italy in recent weeks of Tesla vehicles being vandalized and defaced, and anti-Musk and anti-Donald Trump sentiment written all over with spray paint, which is kind of surprising to me. Generally, the Europeans are kind of, they stick to themselves and their own issues. And I'm not sure why something happening in the U.S. has this much of their attention.
I don't know. It's concerning to see. Again, what we said last week, what we've said several times over the last few weeks, when people are defacing these Teslas, when they're standing out against these electric vehicles, they're standing out against a concept that typically is near and dear to their own heart. The people that they're damaging, the people that they're hurting, are not Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
Right.
Elon and Donald kind of don't care, because these vehicles have passed beyond Tesla's ownership to all the individuals that are in Italy or in France or in Germany or wherever this is all happening. And it's happening in all these places. It's
their neighbors. It's their fellow citizens. It's kind of a misguided, effort at making a statement. Jesse, I got a picture to throw up here of the fire in Rome, and this is an aerial view, a bit different than the one that we posted last week. Yeah, you can see the destruction there. So let's see. We've got some other pictures here.
The latest that I had heard about this was that it's being investigated as arson. I did another check this morning to see if there were any updates in the press and did not find anything newer than 5 days ago.
Okay. Well, here we have it. This is the new electric vehicle Corvette. And I'm going to give you a few of the other images that go with this here. Let's see, there we go. There's a front image. Yeah. And Jesse pointed out that thing's got holes in it in the front there.
Oh, sure does.
It's kind of like the Lotus Emira, which aerodynamically has these scoops that go all the way along the side of the car. I mean, it's a pretty cool concept. You can see the control arms right here.
Yep.
There's a little split in the middle there. Those are going to pivot up and down as it hits, road type changes. And let's get another image here. There we go. There's a side view image, and you can see those scoops on the side there. And I'm going to read you some comments here. There's some pretty funny ones that came along with this when it was posted on X. This one I found most interesting because they really attempted to keep some Corvette design cues in the design.
Yes.
If you notice that split rear window, that is the first 1963 Corvette. And you see how they maintained that those angles and that split.
Yep.
This is one of the Corvettes actually that actually launched the whole GM Vet program. So the story on this is, of course, it is a concept car. And let me read you some of the comments, and they talk about this being a concept as well. First one is, because it went so well with Dodge, let's try it.
Love that. And, you know, the first thing that made me think of, did they pipe the exhaust into this Corvette too?
Yep, that would be fun. Then here's another one. Do they actually ever produce any of these concept cars? Well, that's probably a resounding no. Then a little bit further, he says, this design will never come to market. Concept cars are in the automotive industry are just them saying, we can make cool shit, but we won't. Sorry, Jesse. I hope we didn't have to bleep that out.
We'll have to go edit that.
Here's another one. Looks good. Wish the windshield was continuous, though. Well, remember, we showed you the 1953 Corvette, and that split rear window design was definitely part of the DNA of this Corvette.
Well, and part of the reason that you need to have that is your A-pillar on the front of that windshield. That's what provides the structural integrity for the vehicle.
Well, this is the back, Mark.
On the new Corvette, they have it in the front as well.
Oh, they do? Okay. Oh, look at that.
So yes, on the 53, it's only split in the back. If you pull up the front-facing picture of the new concept car, you're going to see that it's split in the front as well as the back.
Right.
But it doesn't have the traditional side pillars on either side.
So you know how in high school you can barely afford a car, and maybe it's in your senior year, right?
Oh yeah.
Unless you go to a school out in the suburbs where the parents oftentimes buy the kids a BMW. Well, that didn't happen in my inner city ghetto school, right?
Right.
So I had a $200 Ford Falcon, right, with an engine that sounded like a sewing machine, but it was my transportation. Well, there was one guy in our class, Ken Campagna, that actually had one of these split rear window Corvettes.
Oh my gosh!
And he got all the girls, of course.
Yeah, of course.
There you have it. So here's some more comments about this. I don't think their main fan base of beer-drinking old white dudes is going to pay for an electric vet. He's probably got a point there.
Well, and that is the market for Corvettes nowadays, it seems like.
And the final one that I enjoyed was, it looks cool, but I don't want a sound bar as my exhaust.
See, there you go. The specs on the Corvette, it said it's 1,030 millimeters tall.
Mm-hmm.
That's about 40 inches. So from the ground to the top of the cab, that means if it can be believed, I think you'd be sitting lower than you would in a Tesla Roadster.
Really? Under 4 feet, actually, 40 inches. Yeah, that's amazing.
That's incredibly low.
Of course, now you have issues with speed bumps, for example. Now, let's not forget, folks, this is a concept car. And what this implies is this is wishful thinking by the engineers at GM.
Yeah, it's a cool looking car. I happen to really like it.
Mm-hmm. Instagram, DF Cloud 6. Hello, I follow the work your people made. So cool. Keep it up. Well, thank you for that encouragement.
Overtowski on YouTube, the Renault Avantime only sold 6,770 units.
That's not bad, actually.
So it was, for a mass production car like that one, though, that was a dismal failure.
Mm-hmm. Islander on YouTube saying, sitting in the seats of the car that's driving is what I was trying to say, and it will make you a believer. It is great to be back, gang, and don't laugh, but the check is in the mail, Jesse. Okay.
On YouTube, PYGKLB, anti-Elon sentiment in Europe is likely a reaction his campaigning for the AfD, which is the Alternative for Germany party in Germany, and Marie Le Pen in France.
Ah, okay.
Could be. Now, of course, Marie Le Pen has been banned from politics for 5 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, that came down from the French Supreme Court in the last couple of weeks.
Okay. Right. Well, we'll have to see how Elon eventually extracts himself from all this political activity.
Yeah.
Jesse's shaking his head.
Well,
I hope so. I hope he does extract himself soon because it's hurting the company.
Yeah. All right. So here's an interesting headline. Tesla Giga Texas vehicles now drive themselves to the outbound lot. And I think I have a picture of that here. Take a look at these vehicles actually driving themselves. There we go. So it doesn't sound very like much of a stretch because that's what they're designed to do is drive themselves, and it's not any complex road course. I'm sure that it's fairly clear. So what they're saying here is in just a couple of months after Tesla announced that the vehicle produced in its its California factory were driving themselves to the outbound lot, it appears the Gigafactory Texas now is following suit. And this is from a post on X. Joe Tegmeyer shared video footage of multiple new Model Y and Cybertrucks driving autonomously. By the way, these plants have a number of drone operators. Some of them actually live on site. One of our fellow influencers actually lives at Starbase. And they're constantly collecting content like this. So many thanks to them for, dedicating their lives to something like this.
Definitely.
But what he said was, I saw this happening constantly with Model Ys and driving from their own factory. The automaker is Tesla is expected to launch unsupervised FSD in Austin in June, just as the Google-owned company Waymo has been rolling out robotaxi service in the area through a partnership with Uber in recent months. I know driving here in Phoenix in certain areas like Scottsdale area and South Phoenix in that eastern portion, you see Waymo vehicles constantly. Sometimes they have an occupant that's being chauffeured, and then other times they're completely empty. We're getting used to this kind of
it's
autonomous.
Close to our area of town where my wife and I live, and our biggest count. We like to go out to breakfast on Saturdays, and so we'll go drive over to Chandler and go to breakfast. We've seen as many as 11 in one drive.
Really? Okay.
So they are everywhere.
Right. And I thought I had a picture for the next article of Drew Baglino. I guess I do not, unless folder. Let me check if it's there, and if it is, I'd like to pop that up to show him standing there with Elon at a earnings call last year. I don't have it, folks. All right, so we're going to go back to here. So Drew Baglino was an executive at Tesla for 14 years. Very close to Elon and the upper management teams. He started in 2006. It was 2 years before Elon took over as CEO at Tesla. So he was there for many, many years. And some of the old timers we work, of course, know him and have worked with him closely.
Yep.
He eventually became senior vice president of powertrain and energy, and he left Tesla in April of last year. I've talked to him a few times since then. He says, I'm just kind of kicking back, relaxing, but got some things in the works, which will come out soon. And anyway, it's come out. He is now a founding member of Heron Power, Heron. There's the picture. Thank you, Jesse. And what they're tackling is a part of the electrical grid that hasn't seen much innovation for over a century, transformers.
Yeah.
Transformer technology hasn't changed. There's nothing to change. It's, a couple of coils. The turns ratio determines what happens with the voltage. Current is inversely proportional. So you raise the voltage, the current drops proportionately. But they are vital in the grid because this is how you transmit power across long distances. If you raise the voltage to hundreds of thousands of volts, even a few million volts at times, you end up lowering the current to the point where the conductor becomes or stays fairly small.
Right.
So very important part of the power grid. Anyway, Heron is now working on a special transformer, changing the technology. And they're talking solid state. They say that 80% of high voltage transformers are imported, making them subject to expensive tariffs under President Trump. So that's the first reason to try to find an alternative to transformers. Transformers adjust electricity voltages and are in short supply as grids face surging electricity demands for power-hungry AI facilities. So a handful of startups are developing advanced transformers, including a solid-state system. Now, unfortunately, there wasn't much released about the technology. I'm really curious. Is it a DC to DC or AC to DC to DC
I looked up
converter?
and found some information on it. So, because when I hear the word solid state, and I think, okay, well, wait a minute. Solid state usually means there's no moving parts, but a conventional transformer has no moving parts.
Right.
It has, a primary coil which generates a magnetic field, and a secondary coil that's wound in a different ratio that basically inductively catches, for lack of a better word, that magnetic field and ends up either stepping up or down your voltage. The solid-state transformer, though, it uses power electronics, converters and inverters. A lot of times it'll convert AC power to DC. So basically an AC to DC inverter or an AC to AC inverter that converts the alternating current power to a fixed high frequency. And then it'll switch it back to the desired output voltage on the back end. There are a lot of ramifications to this. Conventional transformer depends on either the 50 hertz or 60 hertz or the 50 or 60 cycle electricity coming into it.
Right, the alternating current, changing state.
Yeah, the alternating current changing state. A solid state transformer can switch and use higher frequencies. It can sense the voltage incoming, which means it can take care of things like wind or solar, where you might have variable voltages coming in depending on if the sun's out or if it's windy outside. It can regulate those. Basically power condition the energy as it's being transformed, and so the power that comes in is variable. It has voltage spikes. It has or the voltage drops. It has all the things that we think of with a UPS.
Sure.
The ripple and all of those other electrical things. It conditions that, takes it out, and then sends out clean power down the line.
Sure.
But unlike a UPS, which is putting stuff into batteries, this is just taking power in, transforming it, sending power back out. And it's doing electronics to do that.
Yeah, you actually nailed it. The first blending or merging of semiconductors with transformer technology was power conditioners.
Yes.
And by doing so, a transformer typically has static taps on it. So in a building transformer, if you're bringing in 480 and you need 208 and 120 for your, the rest of the power consumption in the building, they will place taps on the input or on the output side, which allow you to adjust for variations in incoming voltage.
Yes.
And it's fixed and static, and it's set at the time of installation. What they did with incorporating semiconductors is put semiconductors on the taps that sense the incoming power and automatically adjust to keep the voltage regulated or constant.
And that's just about what these solid-state transformers are. They're almost like the old-style power conditioners, but they're working at scale, at utility scale now.
Right. Without, it looks like the magnetics and the windings and the coils, which is yet to be determined with this technology. And like you say, now you can change the frequency.
Yes.
And frequency also becomes important because the higher the frequency, the less filtering you need on the output. Like filter capacitors become much smaller in planes that operate at 400 hertz.
Well, and the higher frequencies also allow for smaller transformer and filter components. Instead of a large iron core, you can have a much smaller iron core because the higher the frequency, the smaller the core has to be.
Right. So, Drew, we're fascinated by what you're doing with Heron Technologies. We wish you guys the best, and we're anxious to get more technical information as to how this new technology is going to be inserted in the grid.
I think he has a rare opportunity, especially if the tariffs begin to take hold. All of a sudden, people are going to start looking at what's being made in the U.S. There's going to be a demand surge for U.S.-made products, and his product is coming to market at the perfect time.
Yep. Highlander says, don't forget to hit that like button, folks. Yes, please do.
Thanks.
He also says, I met Joe Tegmeyer in Chattanooga, Tennessee at the Tesla meetup. He even signed his T-shirt. There you go.
There you go. Ghost Privacy on YouTube has joined us and says, how's it going, guys?
Going well, thank you. Islander says, those have to be some extremely large stake components. And what about the cooling? Oh my goodness. All right, so we're gonna find out what this technology is all about soon, hopefully. So I wanted to throw up an image here. I first saw this on Facebook a week ago. And for those of you that have been to Germany, and you're a car guy, there is no experience like being able to do whatever speed you like and whatever your limitations are in the car that you're driving. If you enjoy speed, you enjoy cars. There's nothing like it anywhere on the planet. And when I saw this, I usually don't vote for very much, but I upvoted this immediately. If Texas is going to create an Autobahn-style highway with no speed limits, there are 136 upvotes on this Facebook post. So there are a lot of other people besides myself that are interested. Yeah.
It's amazing to me that this hasn't happened. We're America. We're the land of the free. How do we not have...
I can tell you why. And it's simple. In Germany, for example, the bad drivers don't teach the next generation of drivers. They have to go through a 6-month school, spend thousands of euros, and they get trained by professionals. And what you find is they execute virtually everything on the road perfectly, like the zippering thing. Yeah. You know how many times people in this country get confused by that? Who was first? Who goes next? That type of thing. Yeah. How many times have you sat at a 4-way stop sign and nobody goes? It's like, dude, whoever got there first, right? It's a simple rule. Well, the bottom line is if we did this in the United States, we probably would start losing population. In Germany, it works, right? I mean, literally, these guys, some of them are 140, 160 miles an hour on the Autobahn. And unless you have strict lane discipline, people are continuously watching their left view mirror when they can, and, you know, they can get out of that lane, go into passing lane, and come back. It wouldn't work here. So that's my answer. But anyway, as tantalizing as this picture looks, it turns out it was an April Fool's joke.
Yet, at the same time, Texas is one of a handful of states that has a law that doesn't enforce a numerical speed limit. The statute in Texas requires that you drive at a speed that's considered to be reasonable and prudent given the circumstances. Therefore, there are a few states, Montana's another one I can think of off the top of my head, that have this reasonable and prudent law. And what that means in reality is if you are driving down the interstate in Texas, it's daytime, there are no cars around, it's flat, it's straight forever, and you catch a police radar and you're going 100 miles an hour, you're as likely as not to not get pulled over. Mm-hmm. Simply because you are driving reasonably and prudent for the circumstances. It's daylight, it's dry, there's no cars around. They don't care.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and that's, in my opinion, that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
All right. So we've got another image to pop up here. And this is my last one. And then we're going to go to the social media team, who also has some great topics to talk about. This one caught us by surprise. It was one of our salespeople next door that sent us this. And I became acquainted with a gentleman by the name of James. Let me get the last name here. I've got to zip down. There we go. James Altucher. And he's got some interesting viewpoints. He says by 2027, Tesla will make more money from AI energy than from cars. Kind of resonates what we've been saying. Yeah, Tesla's not a car company. He says, I was wrong about Tesla, but here's why he felt he was wrong. Elon Musk isn't a car salesman. Everyone thinks Tesla sells cars. He says, I used to also. No, Ford sells cars. Tesla is an AI energy empire in disguise. And if you don't get that yet, he says, you're already 5 years behind. So he says, let me explain. Okay, Elon Musk is in the business of building the future, specifically a multi-planetary future. Earth is the MVP, Mars is the Series A. Every product is just a stepping stone to that goal.
Mm-hmm.
So what looks like a car company is actually the early stages of a planetary infrastructure company. By 2027, Tesla will make more money from AI energy than from cars. And by the way, James is an AI expert, considered an AI expert. So he has a bit of credibility here. Then he says, let me break this down like a startup pitch from the future. Dojo, Tesla's supercomputer. This isn't ChatGPT for Teslas. It's the brain. It trains itself. It powers autonomy in cars, robots, energy systems, and it's building its own intelligence every day. Opticaster, another program at Tesla. It sounds like Pokemon, but it's smarter. It's Tesla AI that manages energy distribution in real time. It knows when to store energy, when to use it, and when to trade it. It's like having a hedge fund manager for your electricity bill.
And your hedge fund manager is infinitely fast.
Yes, instant.
And complete and 100% accurate.
Yeah. Auto bidder. This one's nuts, he says. Imagine AI trading electricity the way that Wall Street trades stocks, except with 100% uptime and no emotion, no bias. It's already being used by energy companies and even supercharger networks to buy and sell stored energy in real-time markets. Translation, he says, free money.
Think of California and the energy demand that they struggle with there. Think of Texas a few years ago. Texas has an unregulated energy market, or had an unregulated energy market. And when there were energy shortage due to a the hot spell, heat wave, that's the word I'm thinking of, we had people that suddenly had $60,000 power bills because Texas was beholden to the spot market of energy, and energy went up to as much as several $100s per kilowatt.
Wow. Crazy.
And it made national news.
Yeah.
That's what he's talking about here.
So then he talks about Power Hub. Think of it as a command center. It's an AI dashboard that tells you where your power is going, where it should go, and how to make your grid smarter. But wait, he says, here comes the robot army. Optimus. This is the twist ending. The AI-trained humanoid robot that will literally install the future. Picture this, all right? Optimus building solar farms in the desert. And by the way, it doesn't care how hot it is out there or whether there's any water available. It doesn't care about any of that. And it can work in pitch, at night without any light.
Right.
Optimus repairing wind turbines in a storm. Safety issues? It's not going to need safety glasses or any of that other stuff.
No, and I mean, what's the worst that happens? An Optimus falls down 300 feet?
Right.
Okay. It broke. They send up another one.
Right. Next, right?
Yeah.
No family to appease, and no attorneys to service at that point for wrongful death, right?
Right.
It just goes on and on. Finally, he says, Optimus cleaning and maintaining your entire energy infrastructure without sleep and without pay raises and without vacations, breaks, any of that. So, and then he says, Optimus isn't even on the books yet. They're not including it in the financials. It's the hidden ace. So he says, what's the bottom line? In 2023, Tesla's energy profits were 6.5% of gross. In 2024, 25%. Everybody's focused on, well, the cars aren't quite selling like they used to.
Right.
What does it matter? They're not a car company, And then he says, in 2024, he says energy revenue was up 67%. Auto revenue was down 7%.
You remember us reporting on the stationary battery packs?
Yes.
the mega packs that Tesla made, and we said, hey, mega packs, they're already like a $10 billion business, and nobody even talks about them.
Yeah. Wall Street seems to be ignoring it.
Yeah.
So he says, at this growth rate, by 2027, Tesla will become the Amazon Web Services of energy. Except instead of selling server time, they're selling electricity, AI, autonomy, robots, and maybe even keys to Mars. None of this includes the upside from selling AI chips, the A15 chip, offering AI as a service drop or as a service from Dojo, and then scaling Optimus. So he says, if you're still thinking about Tesla as cars, you're using a flip phone in the iPhone era. The foundation of the next civilization, he says, Mars is optional, but profits aren't.
We were talking last week about the cost of ChatGPT running a single query on their O3 model, and how the cost in electricity and in basically resources was somewhere around $32,000. That's what this is addressing exactly.
Mm-hmm.
The Tesla is saying, "Hey, we're going to earn that $32,000." I'm blown away. I think it's a prescient and on point take from him.
Yep. Well said, James Altucher. So we have some questions, and then we're going to switch over to the social media.
Yeah, Niels
team.
has a good question about what you were just talking about, or a statement rather.
Okay. He says, Niels in Denmark says, good evening. FSD, auto taxi, and AI sound good now, but will become commodity and bring in near zero profit. FSD is already going that way.
And then he goes on to say, I forgot Optimus, same thing. If it proves successful and saves money, everyone will make them. Niels may be right. At the same time, Tesla enjoyed a run of 10 years, where they were kind of the only EV maker in town.
There's a certain advantage to being first.
Yeah. And there is that was a real advantage, and that propelled Tesla from struggling startup to the most profitable automotive maker in the world in 2020. It seems like we have that same type of thing now going on here 5 years later with Tesla and AI. Absolutely. Other people are going to get into it, and you can bet somebody's going to figure out how to do it better, faster, and cheaper. In the meantime, Tesla has the best, fastest, and cheapest option for AI.
They're in the driver's seat for the moment. Yep. So, Aaron, what do you have for us? Okay.
I have a pretty cool little new device from Renault. So, if you do you have the pictures in the folder over there?
I do.
Okay. You can pull out the first one if you'd like. So Renault is introducing a fireman access system. It is a design to douse flames more effectively and quickly with collaborations from firefighters. So I guess Renault decided, hey, we would like to have a fireman access port to your battery pack. This is going to be available to anybody who wants to put it into their EV battery pack, and they collaborated with firefighters on a design. Now, this is this is very interesting. As you can see in this image right here, the port is like a mini disc, and so I guess what could happen is you go up to the fire, you stick the hose inside that port. It disassembles, and then you're able to flood the battery pack to keep away or to stop the car from going from thermal runaway. So all my research, it doesn't sound like if it's already in thermal runaway and it's in blazes, it doesn't sound like this is going to do much unless they come up with a device where a fireman can walk up to it in the middle of the blaze. So keep that in mind.
Yeah.
But the system is designed to extinguish fires in roughly the same amount of time as an ice fire, less than 10 minutes. It's supposed to reduce water usage tenfold. The technique relies on an adhesive disc, metal disc, inside the high voltage battery pack positioned over an opening. And in this picture, you can see it too. And then you can go to picture 2 as well. And you can see it right inside there, that disc in that little slot right there. And then if you want to go to picture 3, this is the only image I could find of a firefighter fighting the EV with that system.
Okay. So
I'm not sure if they're going to have a port on the outside. It sounds like, and going back to my notes here, if the battery catches fire, water pressure from the external hose dislodges the disc and floods the battery pack and cools all the cells at once. The disc seals the battery throughout its life and ensures the water tightness requirements for everyday use. So you don't have to worry about going through puddles or anything. And the Renault vehicles have a kill switch under the rear seat and an access port for firefighters to be able to deliver water right onto the battery. So it sounds like in Renault vehicles right now, they're being made with these. It sounds like the access port is through the back seat. So if the car's already on fire, I'm not sure how you're going to want to get into that back seat, rip the back seat out, and then shove a hose in there when it's already, blazing away. But then keep in mind, this is supposed to be before thermal runaway.
Okay.
So, yeah.
You have a video here. Do you want me to pop that up?
Yeah, pop that up. It's just it just shows you the port and then how it floods. So that arrow would be like the hose going through the disc, and then that's how it floods the battery.
Would that be water pressure that forces that disc down?
Yes. Yeah, it says it says right here, water pressure from the external hose dislodges the disc, flooding the pack and cooling all the cells at once. So you just shove it down there with the water pressure going on, and it dislodges it, and then it floods the battery pack.
Fascinating idea.
Yeah, the vehicles have a scannable. So the Renault vehicles have a scannable code that tells the firefighters the car specs and includes the location of its battery and its airbags, in which points are the best for cutting out entrapped crash victims. So Renault is also having QR codes. So now you're going to see firefighters on their cell phones snapping pictures of a QR code, and they'll have the specs right up on there to be able to, in a crash, be able to cut seatbelts, dislodge the battery. So if they're worried about it going into thermal runaway or catching on fire, they can stop it even before they have to use the hose. So that's kind of another cool feature too. See, Renault, has already installed ththese in their BEVs and their hybrids sold worldwide. So this is it seems like this is the first big safety measure that's kind of opening up everybody's eyes. LG is designing their own thing, but they don't have it in any kind of vehicles right now. They have an ultra thin safety layer to stop thermal runaway before it starts, and I guess the safety layer is in between the battery cells, but it's just in a prototype. They don't have any kind of testing or any kind of vehicles, where Renault has these in vehicles right now. And then in South Korea, there's some South Korean researchers that are looking into a new solid polymer to eliminate fires entirely. So I guess this polymer, once the cell gets hot, this polymer is supposed to encase it and really reduce it from becoming a thermal runaway. And then when the firefighters get there, they're able to cool down the pack and keep it maintained because of this polymer. So there's some new safety things that are coming out. It'll be interesting how Renault, because it sounds like they're not patenting this, and they're open to giving this technology to any EV manufacturers that wants to implement it. So
you have a question up there, Aaron, from TikTok.
Darcy says, as a firefighter, the person doing this would have to have breathing apparatus to be able to cool the back seat and apply water.
Well, I think that's just a standard on fighting any fire. that they have some kind of
Protection, yeah.
breathing apparatus.
Respiratory
They're gonna.
protection.
I mean, you go into a burning building, they're gonna have a oxygen mask on anyways. So, but yes, they'll have to have something, there.
All right. Well, thank you for that segment, Aaron.
you.
Problem.
Very interesting. Cass, you have something for us as well, I understand.
Hello. I have I found a new motorcycle company called Damon Motorcycles, and they are still kind of in development. They're entering their late stage engineering now, which is pretty cool, meaning they're getting real close to production. They're finalizing any mechanical and electrical systems that they have with their battery and any other vital key components. Their target for pre-production is Q4 of 2025. So later this year, they're hoping to actually start pre-production and get these things rolling, pun intended.
All right. Good one. Yeah, good one, Cass.
But these things are really, really nice bikes. They look like real sports bikes. There are some of them that I've seen that like kind of look like sports bikes, but these ones are really nice. I like the look of them. Their specs are amazing. That right there is one of their safety features. Not only do they have additive cruise control, they have this safety feature called Copilot. And Copilot is kind of like Tesla in their awareness, right? So Tesla has their whole awareness around the car where they can see potential threats and stuff. This is the same thing. You can the motorcycle itself is scanning for potential threats. Either if they're moving too close to the line of a lane, the motorcycle handles will vibrate dependent on which side they're close to, which is similar to video game controllers. So video game controllers will also vibrate dependent on what's happening in the video game, which I find really cool that they took that technology and thought process and added it to a motorcycle. So if there's something real close to you on this side that you may not see in your blind spot, your handlebars will buzz and vibrate. So then you can either check your blind spot or just move out of the way. And that they call that their haptic motors in their handlebars. So it will look for potential threats. The shifting of the riding position is really neat as well. So normally, if I wanted to shift my riding position on my motorcycle, I have to manually do it. I have to take the bike apart, move the handlebars up and down, or the pegs forward and backward. This one is pretty much automatic, and I use air quotes because you technically have to hit a button, and the motorcycle itself will either raise or lower the handlebars or push the pegs forward and back. So it'll give you a more sporty mode or a more upright and commute mode, which I also find really interesting and really nice, because a lot of the time I had to lower my ZX4R because I am tiny and short. But here, I wouldn't really have to manually lower the bike. I just can switch which position I'm in. That way, my arms aren't like super stretched out if I was to ride a ZX6R, which I've done. It also has, those are some of the specs on it. So a lot of their hypersports can go up to 200 miles an hour, which is comparable to a 1000cc bike. The bottom right of their SE goes about 120 miles an hour, which is roughly as fast as my bike goes. And I have a ZX4R, so mine's a 400cc bike. So their range is between 400 cc's and about 1,000 cc's, which is what we want. We want bikes to be able to be comparable to our ICE bikes, but we also want them to be affordable. So that's the next step after the technology that they're making is making it more affordable. The whole thought process behind this particular company is similar to a lot of the other motorcycle companies, in the fact that they want to make something that's more sustainable and has a less carbon footprint. But a lot of their safety features are because their CEO or their founder had gotten into a motorcycle accident. That's why a lot of motorcycle gear companies start too, is that their founder or their CEO had gotten into a motorcycle accident and they want to be able to protect themselves better. They enjoy the ride. We know the risks, but we also want to lessen the risks where we can, right? Each bike that they will offer will always come with Copilot. There is no question on if I get a lower, I'm using air quotes, CC bike, if it has Copilot or not. All of their bikes have Copilot, which is really, really cool. They also all have their different riding modes, a parking brake. They all also have a rear cam. So there's cameras pretty much almost all around the bike, so in the front and in the back, so then they can see what's in front of them and what's behind them a lot easier than having to completely turn around. The brand of the company is called Damon. I'd gotten that question from Bruce Van
Deventer.
Thank you. It's called Damon Motorcycles, DAMON Motorcycles.
And that also answers DF Cloud 6. He's saying on Instagram, what is it called? So how can we follow them?
Yep, they are a Canadian motorcycle company, which I find really, really cool. They still have a whole bunch of testing that they're going through. There's a bunch of videos on them. It's really sparking conversation in the biker community. Pun intended.
Well, sure. I mean, a bike that can go 200 miles an hour and has a 200-mile range, it seems like they're the first ones that maybe have figured this out.
Yeah. It's crazy. Oh, their engine, I could talk about this motorcycle for days, honestly. Their engine is really, really cool too. It's all nice and compact. They have a hold on, I'm going through my notes real quick. Where is it? There's Copilot. They have a fail operational motorcycle. So all their motorcycles are fail operational, meaning if a cell fails, it doesn't completely shut the bike off. You still have time to pull over and turn the bike off to see what's wrong with it. All of their bikes have a fail operation system. So it's their patent series of countermeasures to stop the ignited battery cell from spreading to other cells, which is crazy.
Very cool.
They also have different types of cooling. So they have liquid cooling and oil cooling. Like I said, I could talk about this for a long time because they've got a lot of cool stuff and a lot of cool technology behind this one motorcycle, let alone their series of motorcycles.
Well, Cass, it looks like a splendid motorcycle, and we can probably put this into other segments as you get more information.
I think so. We've got a lot of comments about both the motorcycles and the port for water. Let's get through a few of them. Niels on YouTube is saying, hey, can you possibly use dry ice powder? Water does damage the batteries, I think, and doesn't cool that well. And PYGKLB responds, water changing to steam is a big heat sink. Dry ice to CO2, not as big. Also, firefighters tend to have water on call.
Yep, good point. Bearded Tessa's joining us. YouTube, he says, today's trivia question for you. What comes first? 1, robotaxi. 2, long-range rear-wheel drive Model Y or 3, or rear-wheel drive Cybertruck?
I think that's the cheap Cybertruck that's supposed to come out for $40,000 or $50,000.
Yeah.
Well, chime in, folks. Answer Bearded Tesla and see what your thoughts are.
I have a thought, but I'd like to hear what other people say too.
Okay.
And speak up in the comments, even after the podcast here. We'll read comments this next week.
Hey guys, I'd be curious to hear about Bearded Tesla's thoughts on if the Cybertruck is a flop. I know he's an owner, so he might be a tad biased, but it'd be kind of interesting to hear his thoughts on if the Cybertruck has been a flop so far.
Yeah, absolutely. That was the main theme of this show, by the way, and we were surprised how much interest it generated.
Yes.
And again, the AI prompt here is, please anthropomorphize a Tesla Cybertruck with a sad face and some panels falling off and people protesting with placards in the back. And it nailed it perfectly.
Very well.
Yeah. Well, we'd like to thank everybody for joining us. We've gone an hour so far. It's been fun. Join us next week for the EV podcast at 10 o'clock Tuesday, Mountain Standard Time. I'm Pete Gruber.
I'm Mark Schaffner. Have a good day.